Dr. Trey Pennie on the line. Dr. Pennie, good to have you with us here on the John Fredericks Radio Network.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, John. My man.
All right. Look, tell us about your race.
Yeah. So, I'm running down in Texas. So I'm running in a major minority district. For the audience that don't know who I am, I'm Dr. Trey Pennie. I'm a doctor of education from Texas Tech University. I'm a military veteran, U.S. Army veteran. I'm a 20-year Dallas Police Sergeant. I'm actually an active Dallas Police Sergeant when I'm running this race. And I'm running against a longtime Democrat, Eddie Bernice Johnson, Texas District 30. She's been in office for 28 years. She's about 84, 85 years old. And this just so happened to be the district that's failing. It's the district that has the highest murder rate in the state of Texas. We have, failing schools, low economic development. The people have no opportunities. And it is one of the major minority districts. Like I said, of the 435 seats in the United States, 28% of them are major minority. And unfortunately, the Republican Party doesn't have an infrastructure.
Right.
So what I'm doing is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to show the entire party and the conservative movement how to go win these districts. I'm going to go because at the end of the day, you got to have the right people that's running. You got to, it's not a game. It's not a gimmick. There's somebody. I come from the inner city. I've been through a whole lot throughout my lifetime. And as a law enforcement advocate, I made it a point to make sure that I connected law enforcement with their communities because I know how these progressive policies, they hurt the people. And the people, essentially, they're looking for something else. So, and I will say this, though, John. The other day we had the Texas primaries. In the Texas primary, I'm running unopposed as a Republican. And through that whole election, now Eddie Bernice Johnson got 32,000 votes from the Democrats, but on the basis, without me telling anybody to go vote in my primary, because I'm automatic, 9,600 people went out and voted for me in the Texas primary. I think that's impressive. That's a contest vote against her.
I mean, you got 9,600 votes in a race that wasn't a race. They just showed up and voted. Right. You guys had nothing going on, right? I mean, the president had no opposition. So you had nothing going on. Republicans just showed up and voted for Trump, and then they voted for your name, and there was no race. That's pretty good, man.
No race.
That's pretty good. I got to tell you, Trey, I love what you're doing. We met last night. We were out, had a chance to run into each other, talked a little bit, and I was excited about you having you on today, and you looked us up, got everything done. But I got to tell you, I love what you're doing. Here's what Dr. Trey Pennie is trying to do. Meantime, he's a Dallas sergeant in the police force in Dallas. He has a job. He has a family. But here's what he's trying to do. He's like, okay, here's a district that's D plus 20-something, 30-year incumbent, gets no money, gets no attention, written off, etc. But three things. One, we need to field viable candidates. Because if these Democrats in these districts that have been there for 3 decades, if they don't have a viable candidate, guess what they do? They go to the neighboring district that might be competitive or a swing district. They're raising money. They're going to campaign events. Yep. They're helping beat that Republican because they have no opposition. That's number one. Here's the second thing it does, okay? It allows for Trey and others to show the Democrats that there's a competitor, and every vote that Trey gets drives up the vote for President Trump in that district.
Amen.
Texas could be close. So if there's no race, a lot of Republicans they don't bother to show up because there's no. But everybody he gets out, everybody he signs up new, every voter he registers in that district is a vote for Trump. But here's the third thing that Dr. Pennie is doing. He's like, okay, no money, no RNC, no Ronald Romney, McDaniel. I get it, right? No infrastructure. I'm going to build the model for everybody else. I'm going to show them how to go in to a district like this and make it competitive and maybe win the thing. I'm going to show how it's done. I'm going to build the model that everybody else can then replicate, and I'm going to do it myself. I love that, Trey.
Look. I just think, look, if we truly believe these conservative values, we have to go. See, and you got to think about. Look, I wrote an op-ed the other day, and I talked about how the Republican Party are saying we're going to pour all of our money into these battleground seats. We're going to pour our money into there, right? But think about this: if we never achieve 218, then the president's agenda never gets accomplished because nothing will get through the House. Okay, so we can pour all of our money into these battleground seats when at the same time the Democrats are thinking that we're going to go after seats that we don't normally go after. They're already talking about pouring money into District 24. It's a major Republican seat, but they've already started pouring money into this seat. They know that there's no possibility. Maybe look, they're pouring all this money into it. They're hoping by a chance of luck that they're going to win it, but they're doing that across the country. That's a winning strategy. That's what I'm trying to encourage the Republican Party to do. Don't just look at my race and just say, oh, that's a D29. Well, there's no chance we're going to win. You got two things you got to think about. Look, we're trying to drive up votes for President Trump, and then you have a candidate that you will never have again to run in this seat. You'll never have this. Look, I don't want to brag on myself, but you can't replicate what I've come through. You can't replicate my lifestyle. You can't replicate my education. You can't replicate my experience in this community. This is something that this is an opportunity that we will never have ever again. And I'm going to give it to them. I'm going to lay it on the ground, and I want them to take advantage of it once it's built.
I love what you're doing. We're with Dr. Trey Pennie. That's Pennie. He's running for Congress. He's a Trump supporter. He's running in for Congress in Texas District 30. He wants to shake things up. He wants to get new people involved. He wants to start a movement in his district. He wants to help reelect President Trump, and he wants to build a model for other people trying to run for Congress in districts that looks hopeless, that the RNC is not going to give you any money. They're not going to do anything. So basically he's trying to build a mousetrap. And here's why I'm so excited, Dr. Trey Pennie, about what you're doing. Because on a very tiny scale, I've done the same thing in Virginia in the 4th Congressional District, but not for Congress. I've built a platform for people to run for national delegate to these conventions. And we've raised money, got a fundraiser coming up. I've already won the race, but we're continuing to build, because you have to have a model. Because if people in 2024, if we want to get delegates to the convention, and that's how you get a nominee, and we want another Trump candidate, somebody's got to have a model to do this. Otherwise, all the delegates get selected by the establishment, right? So if they want Jeb Bush back, or they want their Marco Rubio back, or the neocons come back, they control it. It's very difficult for people to break in. That's why you have to have these models, and I love what you're doing. What's been their reaction with the people that you're engaged with?
Look, this is it. I am the prime example. The people love me. Let me first say the people love me. I'm in the inner city. Okay, I come from the inner city. And in fact, I am the prime example of the American dream. I know it sounds different, but let's think about it. I come from the inner city with everything that could be wrong with a person: broken family household, father not in the household. At the age of 16, I witnessed my cousin get killed in front of me days before wedding day. I ended up going. That was a catalyst to push me out. I joined the military not because I was patriotic. I joined the military because I had no way out of the hood. I did that, and that created a whole new platform for who I became. I joined that. I wanted to become a police officer. Became a Dallas police officer. Been police for 20 years. Become an advocate. And through happenstance, through everything that I've done in my advocacy, I just so happened to be offered the presidential appointment to the White House in 2018. I chose not to take that seat so I can come out here and run for Congress. See, there's a bigger picture. It's not about me. It's about our country failing. It's about protecting the interests of our country. And if we don't go and we don't start thinking smart about how we vote, how we do business in the United States, we're going to lose our country and everything our forefathers fought for. I hope that makes sense to you.
Oh, Dr. Trey Pennie, it makes perfect sense. We're like kindred spirits. We bumped into each other last night. We were going out for dinner. I was with a friend of mine. Trey had just got done. We basically bumped into each other as we were paying out at the bar in D.C. That's how we met, right? I just said, "Hi, I'm John." He said, "Hi, I'm Trey." Right? I mean, that's how we met. We bumped into each other. You were leaving, and I was getting in, and I actually took your seat. I think is how we met each other.
You did.
I took your seat.
That's how God works.
I know, right? Like, and now you're on the radio today, and literally at 7 p.m. at a bar. Where was it? Old Ebby's or Old
Ebbitt's.
Old Ebbitt's.
Yeah, Old Ebbitt's.
Yeah, I went out to meet
restaurant out here in D.C.
I know. I went out to eat last night at Old Ebbitt's with a friend of mine, and the place was packed. And I'm waiting to get to the bar, waiting for my buddy to come in, and his seat opens up, and I'm like, "Hey, thanks. Can I have your seat?" He says, "Sure." I'm leaving, and that's how we met. And that was about 12 and a half hours ago when we met. And now here he is on the radio show. Who'd have known that we'd bump into each other? We were with my new good friend, my new best friend, Dr. Trey Pennie, Dallas police sergeant. You've got a regular job. Tell us about your job in Dallas.
Yeah, so I'm a Dallas police sergeant. I'm over the evidence unit. Like I said, I've been on over 20 years. I'm going on 21 years. The biggest thing about, how I became who I became as a community advocate, a law enforcement advocate, was I'm over the Dallas and Texas and National Fallen Officer Foundation. So I deal with police officers that are killed or critically injured in the line of duty. And I also advocate. Look, I fight the hard fight. So in 2016, after the shooting attack happened in Dallas, where 5 officers got killed, 2 of them were really good friends of mine. That became the catalyst for me to push back against the Black Lives Matter movement. Most people didn't know anything about it. They didn't know it was a radicalized agenda. You just had a lot of leaders, political people, and everybody saying, "Oh, we just need to concede to it." After they done burnt down Ferguson twice, after they burnt down Baltimore, and then they came to Dallas, and I knew they were coming, and I tried to shut it down. Our political leaders wouldn't listen. So it took 5 officers to get killed, and nobody still wouldn't move. They still tried to concede. So I filed a federal lawsuit. I sued the Black Lives Matter movement. I went out to Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. All of this is during the election time, by the way. And I did it so I can prove a point. I did it so I can break the movement. The same way that the United States government had a strategy of breaking Al-Qaeda after the 9/11 attack. We had to break their financial network. What I did was I went after every law enforcement officer that was being injured in these radicalized attacks, and I encouraged them to file lawsuits. They filed these lawsuits, we kept them in court, and we broke the movement. That's why you don't see Black Lives Matter no more. Secondly, I went after Facebook, Google, and Twitter for facilitating the attacks against law enforcement officers. Facebook, Google, and Twitter, basically, there's a Communications Decency Act, an outdated piece of legislation. Basically, what it does is provide broad immunity for what third parties post on their platform. Now, what they've done is they've excused hate speech. It's hate speech, and you're calling for killing for people, radicalized ideology. What they've done is they've used that to allow it to go forward and say that that's First Amendment rights. So, in the courts, what the courts have said is we're not going to do Congress's job. We're not going to revise this Communications Decency Act because Congress should be doing that. So what they've done is Facebook, Google, and Twitter, these platforms have admitted in court that they know that their platforms are being used for radicalized ideology, for calling for attacks in the United States, for selling illegal drugs, for all these nefarious behaviors. And the courts have still granted that immunity. So as an advocate and someone who's going to change this system, someone who's looking to change this system, I had to put that on my back. That kind of got me going that kind of got my advocacy fueling, and that's why I am right now. So still, as a police officer, I'm fighting all these other agendas, research-based. It's not just me making up stuff. This is research-based. Like I told you, when I was working on my PhD, this was a big part of my research because I had to understand how these radicalized groups were moving faster, how they were able to organize and fundraise so fast, and law enforcement couldn't keep up with it. There was an anomaly. Law enforcement had never seen anything before. Mm-hmm. But through my research, we were able to establish that. But now it's just trying to bring the congressional leaders in line with understanding how we need to protect our homeland security interests first before focusing on anything else.
Trey,
I know that was fast.
Trey, Black Lives Matter, you said you basically bankrupted the organization. Did you find
Yes.
Black Lives Matter, was that in your mind a legit organization, or was it
No,
a corrupt organization based on your research?
it was a corrupt organization. They were being funded. I hate using George Soros, but look, at the end of the day, they were being funded by the Open Society Foundation. That's how, when Ferguson was happening, you had this group going out there paying people to get on the bus from St. Louis and busting them into Ferguson. There was a reason. They would this money was coming from this foundation. When I was in D.C. and they were doing the there was a protest during the inauguration. It was the Antifa groups. There was similar situations happening where you had the ACLU encouraging people to come out into the streets, and you know these radio ads were running. So there was this big cooperative movement where they were radicalizing people to get into the streets to destroy our country, and it's incumbent upon us, on our leaders, to understand which behaviors will be accepted and which behaviors will not be accepted. We will protect your First Amendment right to protest. However, we will not allow you to become terrorists, and we will not allow you to destroy our country. Those are things that we have to set these guidelines, and they have to be strict. So I would be one of the first people to say that I want to put forward legislation to protect our law enforcement officers. Right? You have a hate crime for everything else: race, color, sex, creed. If you attack somebody because of that, then that's a hate crime. There's also a caveat in there, right? The DOJ has this caveat in there. They say that if you represent another specific group that has identifiers, and you can be classified as another separate group, then you can also be considered a hate group. Well, what I want to do is I want to throw law enforcement in there. Law enforcement, they are a separate group. They wear a uniform, and they're attacked just because they wear that uniform. Law enforcement itself should be a hate group that's protected.
I tell you what, Trey, we don't have enough time with you today. I've got to get you back on. I love what you're saying, and I love everything, the model that you're putting together. We're going to split this interview up here into two separate ones and put it up on our YouTube channel. We're going to run this tomorrow as one of our best of segments between 6 and 9. I really am excited about what you're doing, and I really, thank God that we just bumped into each other last night. It's kind of amazing, but God does work in strange ways, man. Dr. Trey Pennie,
Hey,
go
John.
to his website, pennieforcongress.com, Pennie, pennieforcongress.com. Thanks, Doc.